All right, let's jump right into a fascinating story of political evolution. We're talking about a 35-year quest to bring power from the big capital cities right down to the villages of India. This is the story of Panchayati Raj.
So what exactly is Panchayati Raj? Well, at its core, it's a pretty simple but, man, is it a powerful idea. It's a three-tier system of local government, and the whole point is to make sure rural communities get a real say in their own development. It's all about democratic decentralization.
But here's the really interesting part, the central question for us today. I mean, the idea of village councils, that's been around in India forever, right? For thousands of years. So how on earth did this ancient, traditional idea transform into a constitutionally protected right? That's the real quest we're going to follow.
And like any good story, this one starts with a big problem. Picture this. India is newly independent, full of these huge, ambitious development plans. But there's a catch. They're just not working in the villages. And why not? Because every decision was being made at the top, with almost no input from the very people they were supposed to be helping. Something had to change.
So that brings us to our first major milestone. The government knew it had a problem, and this is the committee that drew up the very first real blueprint for how to solve it.
And what they came up with was, honestly, pretty brilliant. Back in 1957, the Belwarrant Rai Mehta Committee laid out this really elegant three-tier structure. You've got the Gram Panchayat at the village level, the Panchayat Samiti for a whole cluster of villages, or a block, and then the Zila Parshad looking after the entire district. It was basically a roadmap for sharing power. For real.
And get this wasn't just some report that sat on a shelf collecting dust. No, this became the actual foundation for everything that followed. And in 1959, the state of Rajasthan went for it. They were the first to adopt the system, kicking off this massive experiment in local democracy. But, of course, the story doesn't end there. It's never that simple, is it? As time went on, the system started running into problems. It kind of started to weaken. And that's when a whole new era of thinking came in, all about, okay, how do we fix this? How do we get this dream back on track?
And this is where you can really see the thinking evolve. Fast forward 20 years to 1977. A new committee, the Ashok Mehta Committee, comes along and says, hey, what if we tried a two-tier system instead? Their logic was that the district level was a better hub for planning, because that's where you had more technical experts and resources. The idea was to make the whole process more robust.
But this committee did way more than just debate the structure. They planted the seeds for some absolutely game-changing ideas that would become so important later on. We're talking about things like guaranteeing seats for marginalized communities and for women, letting political parties get officially involved, and, this is a big one, insisting on regular elections.
What came next was kind of like a great relay race for reform. Throughout the 1980s, you had one committee after another passing the baton, each adding a crucial piece to the puzzle. The GVK Rao Committee insisted these local bodies had to be central to development. The Thungan and Gadgil committees pushed for better planning and, critically, for real financial power. But the next runner in this race, well, they had the most important idea of all.
And this is it, the absolute turning point of the whole story. In 1986, the L.M. Singhvi Committee said something truly revolutionary. They argued that if you want these local governments to be really powerful, to be truly independent, they can't just exist because of state laws that can be changed on a whim. No, they needed protection from the highest law in the land, the Constitution of India. That single idea was the spark.
And just like that, the entire game changed. The mission wasn't just about improving the system anymore. It was about embedding it into the very DNA of the Indian state, about forging a permanent law right into the Constitution.
All that work, all those decades of committees, debates, and reports, it all came down to one powerful number, the 73rd. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, passed in 1992, was the moment that took the dream of local self-governance and made it an irreversible reality.
So what did this huge amendment actually do? Well, it basically took all the best ideas from that 35-year journey and locked them into place. The three-tier system, now it was mandatory. Regular elections every 5 years, guaranteed. And you'd have independent state commissions for both elections and finance to make sure it all worked. And, critically, it mandated reservations.
And let's just pause on this for a second, because this was an absolute landmark for social justice. The amendment reserved seats for scheduled castes and tribes based on their population. And in a truly transformative move, it mandated that at least 1/3 of all seats and leadership positions had to be reserved for women. This brought millions of women into the political process for the very first time. Just think about that.
So the constitutional quest was a massive success. But what does that all mean for India today? What's the lasting legacy of this incredible journey?
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. The whole thing started with a simple committee trying to figure out why development just wasn't reaching the people.
And it ended 35 years later, with that goal becoming a fundamental constitutional right, creating what is literally the largest experiment in direct democracy the world has ever seen.
And you can see its impact in the real world, right now. Today, these local government bodies, these panchayats, they are the absolute backbone of rural India. They're the ones responsible for implementing these massive national schemes that affect daily life, from rural employment and housing to nationwide sanitation. They are the on-the-ground link that makes sure these big plans actually reach the people they're meant for. The quest for local power became the engine of national development.
And that leaves us with one final, crucial question. The historic battle to give power a constitutional home at the grassroots has been won. But the work's not over. The next big challenge is making sure these bodies have genuine financial freedom and that the elected members have the capacity to govern effectively. So how can we strengthen this system even further to truly deepen local democracy for the next generation? That's something for all of us to think about.